Thank you. Thank you, Abram. It's been wonderful to be here. I was wondering whether you could help me help some other people. I work in mental health and have been very privileged to do it. And I use your work, which is wonderful. There's a group of people who stay out of the vortex, and they've got these labels, how we label people in medicine. And the particular conditions that they've been labeled with, which I'd really appreciate your help, are obsessive-compulsive disorder.
For example?
For example, it's a group of people who have specific fears, like they may have a germ phobia. So there's a fearful thought, and then they'll have a ritualistic behavior, which they perform in order to decrease their anxiety. So they go round and round in a circle. So, for example, someone may have a germ phobia. So they'll spend a lot of time washing their hands, or they won't be able to touch doorknobs. So there's specific rituals that they do to decrease the anxiety. And there's traditional methods which we try and use to help them, which have varying degrees of success. So I'm just curious about...
Well, the first thing that we would say to them, and you said something really important just now. You said, right, it's a ritual. Instead of a ritual, let's use a softer word. It's a behavior or an action,
right,
that they do to release their anxiety.
Right.
So they are finding some relief in doing that, which means that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Right.
So, but as you see it as being excessive, then you say, in excess, it's a bad thing. And we say, you can't have it both ways. If it gives them relief, then it's a good thing because it is giving them relief. So now, following through with the making peace with where you are thing that we've been talking about, if you would say to them, if I were standing in your physical shoes, oh wait, you can't quite say that. They wouldn't understand what you meant.
Oh, trust me, I could get there with that.
If you were to say to them, from my point of view, as I see you do this, I realize that you're doing it because it makes you feel better.
Right.
And I want to say to you, good for you.
Right.
And then say, I don't know how many times we get to wash our hands in a day police are.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they have any right to tell you how many times in a day you can wash your hands. Then make light of it. Do they buy your soap or something? What makes them so interested in all of this? And then say, there are many things that I do. You might even say, I once walked up on a stage in front of a lot of people on a day that the ship was really moving, and I took someone's hand to carefully come up onto the stage. And when I got on the stage, I got my eyes focused on the chair because I wanted to make sure that I was going to sit in the chair, not topple over the edge of the stage. Now, some, more sure-footed, might have said, that was excessive, compulsive danger disorder. Mm-hmm. But it sure did make me feel better under those conditions. Mm-hmm. And then find as many things as you can find that you deliberately do. Say, society is schizophrenic. Mm-hmm. They show us all of these things, try to get us to be afraid of them. And then when they succeed, then they say, we've gone overboard. They can't have it both ways, say to them. They can't have it both ways. And personally, say to them, personally, I think that you get to decide how often you do that. And if you have found a pattern of relief for you, then I say, good for you. Esther has washed her hands more time on board this ship than ever in her life, and for no reason other than the soap is there and it is so lovely. So every time she goes near it, she just stops and washes her hands, and she's not worried about anything. It's just there. In other words, what you want to do is soften their weirdness, soften their view of your view. We hear your beeper. Soften their view of your view of their behavior.
That's been really helpful. So in other words, I have to soften my resistance to their behavior.
You have to make peace with their behavior, because
the real challenge,
not only is the fastest way to someone getting in the vortex, making peace with where they are. The only way of getting in the vortex is by releasing the resistance. And if you are their mentor or their teacher and you are trying to get them to modify a behavior, then you are offering your opinion of their inappropriate behavior. You're just adding fuel to the fire. What these people are, and this is the thing that you really need to hear, these people are highly sensitive to vibration. And they live in a world where the predominant energy is one of guardedness and pushing against. And all they are doing is reflecting that back through their behavior. You want to be someone who calls them into vibrational alignment with who they really are. And it will not be a difficult thing. Once they get a whiff of your connection with their source, in other words, look at it this way. So their inner being is in their vortex, and their inner being's been calling them for a long time. But they're not focused upon their inner being. They're not focused upon the vibration of well-being. They are incrementally, in other words, that's what the impulse to wash their hands is about. In other words, they're reaching for a little relief, and they're giving it to themselves in that way. But then the society stands back and says, no, that behavior that you're offering is inappropriate behavior, and it's weird, and you should stop doing it. And so now that shines a spotlight on pushing against, and that's what they're reflecting back. So you as their mentor, you want to get in the vortex with their inner being and call them in. And you cannot blame someone into the vortex. You cannot condemn someone into the vortex. You cannot say you're weird them into the vortex. In other words, the only way you can be a catalyst to help someone into the vortex is to love them unconditionally as the source within them does. So until you make peace with their behavior, they're not ever going to make peace with their behavior. You have to make it all right with you that they are choosing their relief in that way. Nothing else works. And there are endless failed systems and processes that point that out. In other words, if you help someone cover up an imbalance in their vibration by forcing themselves into a behavior that they're not inspired to, they're just doing it to please someone else, that disorder will squirt out in another way until eventually you'll be calling them multiple personalities or schizophrenic or something. That's all that's going on. Mental health. Say to them, I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to interact, because everything that you feel in an exaggerated way, everybody else on the planet feels in milder ways. And you're just asking the question in a louder way. And I love working with you, because if somebody's not asking the question, nobody can find the answer. And then start right off by saying, and I think the answer to your question is, you don't really have a problem. I think the answer to your question is, we're all making far too much of all of this. I think the answer to your question is that you ought to do what you feel comfortable doing. And we promise you that if you can convey to them and really mean it, you can't fake it, you've got to mean it. If you can convey to them your complete at oneness with their choice in behavior, they'll come into the vortex and their behavior will be irrelevant. Good time for segmented refreshment.
Thank you.